I'd like to thank the society, first of all, for putting up with me here tonight. And thanks to all you people for coming. Numbers like this, you guys prove they still matter. Uh, they were everyone you ever knew. Some were small town kids or from farm families. Some came from big cities across our entire country. They were enlistees and draftees and career service veterans. They were valedictorians, dropouts, athletes, and chess players. Some were even bus drivers in high school. Some of the men and women were the sons and daughters of World War II or Korean vets. Some were married, but most were single. Some were parents, and some were grandparents. They came from every race, religion, and creed in our country. They were everyone you ever knew. Okay, now we're going to show a little video here, and you're going to start it?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. And this is the traveling while it heals. You're going to see it arrive at a site, get set up, get taken down the lead. Is anyone here in 2019 for when the wall was at the old high school? You'll see your site manager here in a little bit. She'll be putting in a panel. Right there, Callie Wright. I've worked with her a number of times. Tim's the guy kind of in charge of the whole thing in the red shirt. Size of the trailer and having displays in it. Whole vet came out and helped. So you just saw a little fraction of it. We're gonna see a bunch of pieces of all the little things that take to make up the wall that heals. Okay, there you see two guys here. There's Barton Johnson, Mark Steely. Two of Barton's sisters are here with us tonight. They are Wendy and Karen. I'm good. Anyway, there's over there. Those are Barton's sisters. Yes,
It is cousin Greg,
and their cousin Greg.
like from area over there.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, that's right. We don't have six in a row here. We can get together. And then Mark Steely is from Cottage Grove. So think about this. Our county is long and skinny. You can't be much farther away than be a kid from Scandia and one from down in Cottage Grove. So we'll talk about these guys later, and we'll talk about the other 20 guys from Washington County. And then to start out, we'll talk about the wall, the history of Vietnam, a little bit. History of the wall it heals, and then the picture project, the wall of faces. And then a year that I think is so important because this is a 50-year anniversary, the last year of death in Vietnam, 1975. So going on, here's a map of Vietnam up by, find my pointer here. Up just north of Hue is the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. I think on this map, it's right here. So that split the country in half, South Vietnam, North Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh City was, of course, Saigon. And you can see the other countries involved in Indochina. It's Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos. Thailand was a great ally of ours during the Vietnam War. There's the first guy on the wall. So I'm going to tell you a little bit later how the names are on the wall. But his name was added after the wall was built in 1982. Richard Fitzgibbons Jr. He was born in 1920. He died in 56. So the earliest guys we have are Buis and Avnard from 1959. And that starts the first year of the wall. So he died before that, so his name was added later. And remember that names on the wall. The wall was created with 5 names on a line. If you find that line with 6 names on it, that outside 6th name was added after 1982. And coincidentally, if you look up Fitzgibbons, Richard Fitzgibbons III, his son, he died in 65 or 6 in Vietnam too. That's a father-son. There's a number of father and sons on the wall. Here we have those first 2 I'm telling you about, Dale Buis and Chester Oppard. And they're at the top of the wall. And here's the last guy to die in Vietnam. Not the last guy, he's the last name on the wall, Richard Vandegeer. He died on May 15, 1975, but he died earlier in the day from the other ones. Here's a picture of him here too. That'll be up the whole time. So Jan Scruggs was a Vietnam infantry guy that in the 70s sometime, he woke up one morning and went down and told his wife, I forgot to name the 3 of the guys that died right alongside me. He says, this is the way it's gonna go. We gotta do something about this. It was his idea to have this memorial. And all he required on it was the 58,000 names. Okay, so they took in all these applications for a design. You could submit $20. And between 1,400 of these designs that were set out in a hangar, Andrews Air Force Base, they chose one by 8 judges. They didn't know who designed any of these, but they unanimously, 8 judges chose that one there. And who would think that's even possible? So when you think about Jan Scruggs, he was an infantry guy. Was he a designer? No. He had Maya Lin for a designer. Was he a money guy? No way. But he had a great money guy, Bob Dubeck. And Bob Dubeck's writing of the Vietnam War is there too. And was Jan Scruggs an author? Heck no. But it was ghostwritten right here. It's Sherdlaw, Joel Sherdlaw. But he's the one that made it happen. So let's just back up a little bit about the war, kind of skipped over that. Our involvement started when Harry Truman was the president. It started with us sending advisors over there, 1950, while the French owned the place then, and they were trying to get it back. They left for World War II. During World War II, the Vietnamese decided they wanted their independence. About half of them wanted to be communist. The other half wanted a democracy. That's what made the split in that country. So in 56, as an advisor, Fitzgibbons dies. They don't agree to add his name till years later. So Avnard deals for those first 2 names. The war would progress. JFK would put in the first troops. LBJ got the Gulf of Tonkin resolution and really raised it up. Got in the hundreds of thousands of guys there. And then 1968 was the worst year. We had the assassinations of Robert F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King. We also had the Tet Offensive, when we lost almost 17,000 of our guys in 1 year. We lost just under 30% of everybody in 1 year. And then the war ended in 73 and 75. We'll get to that later. But can anybody tell me what kind of medal this is? Purple Heart. Okay, that's awarded to people wounded in action and killed in action. So you can see where these guys are. I would say they're on the east panels, just judging by the gradient here and stuff. And they're dropping in one of the taller panels. When you see where they're standing, that's going to get poured with concrete. And then it's going to get all these pavers. You can still take wheelchairs on and stuff, But first, what was laid was wet cement. So all kinds of objects have been left at the wall, anything from metals to the biggest object ever. A Harley cobbed together by a bunch of Wisconsin guys. Doesn't that make you jealous? They walked it down to the wall, stood around a bit and walked away. That's the biggest object left.
Jeez.
But they feel that the first object left was one of these. A guy came up to the wall one day and they were pouring the cement that I just told about. He came up, he said, "Who's in charge here?" I says, "Oh, that guy over there. Could you have him come up to me?" So that guy came up and said, "What's your business?" He goes, "This is my brother's Purple Heart. He got killed over there. And we feel his medal is better with the guys he served with and my family. Would you take this metal and push that into that cement?
Hmm.
So they don't know where it is, but they're pretty sure that's the first object ever left. That's the day of the dedication of the wall. It was Veterans Day in 1982. You'll see a couple things you don't see there anymore. You don't see anybody standing up above. That's kind of fenced off with some like a rope fence. But it's for two reasons. So nobody falls off that wall. And so you're not standing there looking at your loved one.
Mm.
And somebody above you is looking down at you. So you can have your own time in front of that loved one. So those days are done. But I have seen a couple times when there's that many people there. We've been called out to do the reading of the names. It takes 4 days from 5 in the morning till midnight, reading 30 names every 2 minutes. Jan Scruggs read names when we were there, my wife and I. Ann Margaret read. She was on these Bob Hope tours. And that's my wife, Nancy. Where are you? She's right over there. But she was with me there. I have 2 good rows of family members here and 1 more left over. But all 3 of my sons are here. That's pretty good. So Nancy is verifying names. When people come up and read names, they say one wrong, they accidentally miss one, that name will get read. She'll give that to somebody else and go behind. There's Elaine there, and she'll give it to them, and they come up this platform here, read the names, and come off over here. They can add to that Wall of Faces website the approximate second that your loved one's name will be read. And I can guarantee you, if you were there for it, it would be read within a minute or 2 of the date on that. So very good. They do a lot of great things. Better than that refinery I worked at. So there's Jan Scruggs with a lady officer reading his 30 names. Looks a little older than that young kid when the award was given for the wall. It's held at the apex. That's the middle of the wall. We'll get to that. Okay, you're gonna have to use your imagination a little bit for some of this, but you'll see 2 years on here. They are the only 2 years on the wall, 1959, 1975. So what's the order of names? Are they alphabetical? No. No, you couldn't do that. There's 34 James Smiths, 4 or 5 of them have the same middle initial. Couldn't do it alphabetically. This was all by Maya Lynn's design. They are only alphabetical within each day that we had a casualty, which was most of those days once it got going. So you'll see alphabetizing, whoops, and it might be, oh, good words. Going back. And so you'll see some of that. So the names start at the apex here. This is panel 1 east. This is panel 1 west. You'll see pretty good here in a second. And when you stand here and look down and look that way, boy, it looks like it runs into the middle of the Washington Monument. That was by design, that 125-degree angle. If you stand here in the wintertime when the leaves are off the trees, that looks like it runs into Abe Lincoln's lap. It's all by design, the Lincoln Memorial. So the names start, they go like pages of a book. Go down, resume here, zoom here. You go 70 panels each way. So it goes, these are the only 2 coincidentally that don't have the panel numbers. The panel numbers are these little things here. If anybody wants to see this, as clear as looking at it, take a picture of, remember these words, Vietnam Wall Fold 3. The Fold 3 website does that for you. You can go anywhere on it, make it as big as you want, whatever you want to do with it. So they go all the way out to 70 East. And on that 70 East, it's the last panel. It's got 5 names on one line. And then the wall goes down and resumes down on this end, 70 West, with that panel. And that has 5 names on it. So think about it. Those 2 panels, them guys died either the same day, maybe they knew each other, that maybe they were friends, but you can't be any farther apart than those 2 panels. And we have a Pequot Lakes guy down on that panel, 70 West, Garrett Blanksma. So the names come down and then they end here. And we'll talk about this at the end of the reading here. But to give you an idea how the killings went here, how the deaths went in Vietnam. This starts in 59 and ends in 63, or doesn't end, but in 63 or 4 is down here. So this is approximately the first 5 years of death in Vietnam. This panel here, the following 5 months. This panel here, the following 5 weeks. So it gets a lot worse. And of course, when you get to 33, that's not even halfway down. That's where 1968 starts. That's on the second name on line number 11. And that's when January of 68 starts and goes out to the end, resumes down there and comes back to 35E. Granted, these panels are really sloping there, but that's almost 30% of all our guys. And I think 2 of the ladies died in 1968. A terrible year. So you can see how reflective the wall is, and you can tell what I mean. It runs, if your head was right here, it would line up with the middle of the watchman line. And if you look too, most pictures are taken at an angle to the wall. It's so reflective that if you stand straight on and take that picture, yes, you've taken a picture of yourself too. So that's what most people are trying to do, avoid a picture of themselves. There again, you can see great reflections in it. This is one west. There's the 1975. There's a 59. And I just kind of describe some of this 1E to 70. Then the names continue over here and come back. Okay, what I'm showing you here is how some guys are on the wall twice. See Laszlo Rebel here? There he is. He's a Hungarian immigrant, came from Minnesota, earned a Medal of Honor. We have 5 Medal of Honor recipients from Vietnam, from Minnesota. 2 other guys died just like he did. They jumped on live hand grenades in front of their buddies. But here was his name originally. Do you see the difference? His name was Laszlo Rebel. That's Lazio. They mistook the second L in Laszlo for an I. Can you turn that I into an L? No. So you have to put it, it's on this panel next to it here. Go back to it. And you see it's at the end of the line. And he will be the 6th name on that line. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they try to make room for your name as close as they can to the to where your buddies, the guys who were with died. Okay, so there's, let's see if I can show it here. Here we go. Some of us know this, don't we, Denise? John Pirano. Yes, these mark 10. These are for guys my age. If you're going down the line 111, I'd never get down there. I'd lose track. I'd have to start over. So those are 10. You go down 11 of them dots and go one more line, and you're on line 111. Nothing to it. So everybody has a diamond, and you have to look at which panels you're on. These are the west panels. So the marker is at the beginning of their name. When you go to the east panels, the names follow your name. But every once in a while, you'll see some crosses here. Anybody but John or Denise know what that means? Okay, John, Denise, they're MIAs. Okay, that's how they're marked. So you see that cross. I must have extended that a little bit this way, putting it on the screen here. But these are the same dimensions, the same width and height here, and it's the same width and height here. If this guy's remains got discovered, they would take that and blow it out into a diamond. Here's Albert Trudeau is right here, and he was from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This was a great year in terms of returned remains. We had 4 in the last year. That's unusual. We average 1 to 2 a year. It's not going fast enough, and that part of Vietnam will never be over with. So those are the 3 different things that mark the wall, help you find a name. And a lot of it is just separation. What if you had a name like James Thomas? You have a last name that could be a first name. There could be some confusion out there. So it's for that reason too. So how long did it take for them to make their first mistake? The second name. It's not his real name. They put him down on 7, 40 some on 7. It's Avnan. It's not Avnard. It's Avnan. Yeah, it is kind of humorous, you know, there's not much humor in this business we're in here. But there's one guy here that goofed up twice. He's on there 3 times. Okay, so there you can see that walkway. You know, you can get wheelchairs on them. I think it was all like this at the beginning, then they added these. But like I told you, somewhere in there is that metal, these objects that are left there. That's right there, I can guarantee it is right after they cleaned it up. They go every day, every other day and gather up objects. Right now, the number stands at over 400,000, soon to be 500,000 objects left at the wall. You can see these angles here. This is east 20 and west 20. So after 20, then it becomes more steep. You almost think you're walking level here, but these do have a little bit of angle to them. Okay. And that was Maya Lin's design. That it's like you're gouging that thing, you're going to walk down into the depths. If you walk in at either end, you're going to walk down into the depths of hell or whatever you want to think it is, and then come back out at the other end, back into the light. So the wall in DC is built below the ground. Okay, big uproar, putting this thing in the ground. It's black. Everything else on the wall is gray or white. This woman was a communist and all this stuff. Maya Lin, no. She was as American as you or I. She was from Ohio. So anyway, we're just glad it turned out like that. And you'll see, and if you keep this in mind, with it being level on top, you'll see with the traveling wall, why we had to make that a little different. So that's night. Nighttime's a great time to see. This is a picture one of us took. This is the tent that they put up when they read the names of the in memory program, which we'll talk about a little bit. So there's the 3 servicemen statue there. There's 3 branches of service noted there. And like I said, my prelude there, they were from every race, religion, and creed. This is Diane Carlson Evans in front of the Women's Memorial. And she's got a book right here. You might want to take a picture of it later. It's a really good book. She's arch into fame. She's from Buffalo, Minnesota. And what else? Somebody else told me where she lived in Wisconsin, River Falls. Somebody said that. Anyway, she's got some local connections. But she had about a harder time as Jan Scruggs did getting that wall that he did getting the wall built. So that's kind of a modern picture of her. She was a nurse. Here's the old 5-foot replica of the Vietnam Wall. And this is a trailer that came in, the little thing. The one we got now's got an attic in it. They call it the hellhole. 120 degrees up there, and the assistant has to go up in there. Oops, has to go up in there and get the lights out and stuff near it. It's hot. So anyway, Nancy. So this is the old 5-foot version, and I mean almost anybody could look over that thing. They replaced it with a 7.5-foot version. Step over here. And here's their lights. This was set up at the south side of the Scout building, right off of Highway 62 at Fort Snow. And that's the first time I ever volunteered. That was 2014, 2015. This is Ron Krebsbach. Okay, White Bear Lake, where John is from. They're working really hard. It's coming to their town this summer. The dates for the wall are here. And then White Bear on August 6th, it'll be there. It'll be full days from Thursday to Sunday at 2. That's when the takedown takes place. But do you know what field it is, John?
What's the name of it? It's ball fields on the west part of west of White Bear Lake.
Okay,
You can see it from 35.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name of the ballpark.
but they just got it handed to them. They were selected. Over 100 communities typically put in for it, and they choose 32 or so. It's going back to Hawaii this year. They shipped it there a year ago, and it went to Maui and the Big Island. Now Oahu wants it, so and John's going to be out there and volunteer for a day with his wife, Pay. Lucky guy, huh? So anyway, Ron Krebsbach was a 67 graduate of White Bear Lake. And there he is right there. And then this was 2015. So a few months before that, we were the 5th or 6th state, like the second big state, to get at least one picture for all our guys. I gotta quit hitting that thing. So anyway, they decided to try this. And they did it for a year or two and then they quit. But we were the first state in our country to have this done. What they did is they synced the names that were being read to their alphabetical names on the wall. Okay, and what you see here is Angela Krebsbach reading her father's name. And that's her mother, Deb. This is Angela's mother, Deb, Ron's wife, and their sister-in-law, Jackie. Angela wrote one of the most touching remembrances I've ever read. It was very early on. You don't know how much that can inspire somebody. But I took that picture just as she read his name, and I'll have Nancy read his remembrance that she wrote.
My father was killed in the Vietnam War on May 28th, 1970, 3 weeks before I was born. Ironically, I was due to be born on August 3rd, his birthday. It's hard for me to believe that I've lived more than 10 years longer than my own father did. Even so, I'll always think of myself as his little girl. I never got a chance to know him, and he never saw me either. Every once in a while, I will dream about him, look through pictures of him and my mom, who were childhood sweethearts, or read through letters that he wrote to my mom from Vietnam. There is at least one for every day that he was gone. Still, I long for the day when I will see his face, hear his voice, or feel his embrace. One day that time will come. Until then, not a day goes by that I don't think about him, wishing he were here today. There are so many things in my life that I wish I could have shared with him, both good and bad, times when I needed or wanted my dad to be there with me. Even though he hasn't been there physically, a part of him is with me always. Isn't it strange that someone I never knew could have such an influence on me? Those who knew him look at me and see my dad, and I have inherited some of his mannerisms and interests, and I love sports almost as much as he did. I wouldn't give to play a game of softball or golf with him. I'm very proud of all these identities to him because I feel as if a part of him lives on in me. And for my dad, I've always strived to be the best at everything I do. I want him to be proud of me, to be watching over me with a great big smile on his face and a feeling of great pride, the way I feel when I think of him. One day we will be together, but until then, I'll keep visiting his grave and his name on the wall, dreaming about him and loving him as much as any daughter could possibly love her dad.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. So, yeah, that was 2015. And there you see Tim Tate right there. He's the main guy with the traveling wall. That's the first time I met him. That's what the traveling wall looks like today. And you'll see, you might have saw on the video of the setup of the wall that these side panels open up. Here you have the hometown heralds. They'll depict maybe your town and the counties around you. It depends on how big your area is. If it's in Dallas, they can't do that whole county, you know. So. And then on the other side are the other two panels. You can, let's see, that's a passenger side. They've done a lot of improvements to it in this last year. I just heard about it, so I'm kind of anxious to see how it all works out this year. Here's an example of these displays. Here's the hometown heroes here, and it's the wall. Pictures are taken from the wall of faces. Your cards, those pictures all come from the wall of faces. People talk to me to say your pictures. I don't own any of them pictures. Anybody that wants to look at them, those are your pictures. And then here's the in memory. And then here's one of the deep displays. These are electronic, but there's Bob Hope with Raquel Welsh, Les Brown and his Band of Renown. Typical things. Part of this is Jan Scruggs' uniform. So are there any vets here? Raise your hands. Any Vietnam vets here? Any families with these Vietnam vets? Raise your hands. 7 raise hand for these guys. Thanks for coming, guys. So here they are putting up the panels. All that's left is one west. This must be 2 east going in. And here there's top frames and stuff. The middle two here weigh 84 pounds. And, the wall, the traveling wall is made of avonite. It's like a synthetic countertop material. But the beauty of it is it can be engraved. So people can do name rubbings like they do at the wall. This is what the inside of the trailer looks like. And it's hard to imagine that everything you see, that whole wall and the frames behind it. The frames take up the whole gut of the thing. And the panels actually don't take that much room up. Right after this cabinet, they're in the sides here. And then up front there, the tall ones are up there. But that would be occupied by a few more frames, and then we have a gold star bike that goes out with us. And it's just a variety of names that this guy engraved for his buddy when he died. They told him they'd take care of each other's mothers. Well, he sent it to this Robert Cupp's mother. She was in her 70s. She didn't want no motorcycle, so she donated it to us, the BBFF. So we get to put that bike in there. So that's pretty nice. But anyway, Dwayne Foss from Hastings, one of the two guys on the wall from Hastings, his name is on the side of the cycle. That's a traveling wall at night. That's in Farmington, Maine. I was there this summer. And that's when we do Agent Orange. We have these rolls of orange tape. If they choose to do that, we go out there in the daytime. Put it on it's thousands of LED lights and 3 sections to each light section. And they really made for a nice effect that was taken by a drone, of course. And everybody just got done. They walk up with little orange candle lights. There'll be a few speeches and stuff. And these groups that have the wall come to their community, they can have a couple different ceremonies that are always very good. You see that quite often at the wall too. He's reconciling himself, I would assume, with some guy or some of his buddies that he lost. So how do you see these names in the wall of faces? That's all you gotta do. Go on your search, put in VVMF, Melvin Cruck. So now we're gonna move on. We're gonna talk about our Washington County guys. Okay, there's 20 of them that have home of record, Washington County, Minnesota, and 2 of them don't. And for different reasons, we'll just say a little bit about each one. So Melvin Cruck is your oldest guy. He was born in 1931. I'm 73. That's right between my mom and dad. The year between my folks. Was born. He's from Marine on the St. Croix. He's one of our MIAs. We have 2 missing in actions from Cottage Grove and Marine. And the other one is Crockett. We'll get to him. But so I put these guys in order of birth, by birth month, day, and year. And I looked up Melvin to see about him. I thought maybe he was just a guy that was passing through. Nope. He'd been in Washington County a long time. They're in the May Township 1940 census. Melvin is 8 years old here. And he's highlighted. I didn't have to do that. They do that when you call it up. You're looking at it on the computers. You can look at Melvin there if you'd like. Not a great picture, but it's really kind of difficult to get non-officer pictures for guys that were born that early. This is Jeremiah McGarry. When I worked at Stillwater there, when I volunteered, he was the most popular guy of people that came up to me. I want to see Jerry McGarry. Okay. And it didn't take me long to figure out he's one of the easiest guys to find on the wall because he is on panel 32, line 32. You see it there. Panel and line. Date of birth, the province in Vietnam, state of casualty. He was a 62 graduate of Stillwater, graduate service. He was a warrant officer. So they can have multiple pictures. Some of these guys can have 30, 40 pictures. This is Douglas Ott. He was from Matamidi. A librarian. 2014 was Reggie Burish. She couldn't find him. He was on the page, but the names were kind of out of sync. So it sent me on a mission. And they moved to Virginia. Doug's wife, she remarried. And then I found out that they had moved to Washington. So people were still using landlines back then in 2014. I called the guy, her second husband answered. And she had died just a month or 2 before. So we just had the neighbors talk about her and Doug, and he knew a lot about when they were growing up, so that was pretty neat, pretty good experience. There's Barton Johnson. I said his two sisters are sitting over here with their husbands and a cousin. Wonderful. You folks came out today. He was from Scandia, northeast part of the county. And they have a little vets memorial at the north end of town. Got this little booklet you can look at. And there's pages for him. You just go look and you can seek out other vets too. It's a nice thing they do there. Of course, he was killed in the middle of the Tet Offensive, 1968. This is Raymond Whitman. He's from one of the two forest lakes that we have in our county here. This one has 2 R's in it. And you would have one heck of a time. You would have to go through the Department of Defense to get that changed. And you would have maybe 1 in 100 people succeed. But that is a mistake on their part. And if you look at the Caulfield database, it probably has those 2 R's. So whoever wrote it down wrong, and that became his. Who does Homer record, even though it's errant at times? The individual himself. Families get mad. How could they have done that? No, your loved one did that. When they asked him, what's your Homer record? That's what he said. In the Department of Defense, those are the people that make the determinations of who gets named on the wall and who doesn't. Always a lot of contention there. This is our other MIA, William Crockett. He graduated in '64 from the old Park High School. It's down in St. Paul Park. All the other guys that you're going to see, the other 4 or 5, they went to school at Park Grove High School in Cottage Grove. But that's Crockett, and he died towards the end of the war. You see, he's pretty right in about the middle of Panel 1 West. So if I go to the wall in DC, he's about this high. If I'm at the wall at Hills, which is a 3/4 replica, he's about shoulder height, depending on how high we start out with jacking up the frames and stuff. But quite a guy. He grew up on Hadley and Cottage Grove, and the city and our historic advisory committee had a plaque made for him. I've been happy with a little metal plaque like that. He's got a huge one like that. Pictures on it, all kinds of stuff. They did a great job. And that's how they named our new Hamlet Park. They didn't name it after a hamlet. They named it after William Crockett. So I'm pretty proud of him for that. Here's Lloyd Keene, Stillwater. He graduated from Stillwater in, I think, in '64. So he's right on the margin there of being a '64 or '5 graduate. Anyway, Lloyd grew up on a farm near the Withrow Ballroom. And there's a book called The Faces Behind the Names. What an apt title, huh? For a book. It has all these Minnesotans in it. It was made in the mid-1990s. It came out in '96. We had a little team. They just scoured Minnesota and came up with this. Before the picture project started, we had pictures for over 400 of our 1,122 guys. Incredible, because of his work. So anyway, Lloyd's writing is in here. Who did the writings? Mostly family members. Who was alive back then that's not now? Parents. His mother, Viola, she wrote a nice story that you can read about Lloyd in there. And I ran into Lloyd's sister at the Stillwater Memorial Day event some years ago. And I asked her if it was okay if I took that and transcribed it and put it to his page. So he always tried to ask. Sometimes you do without asking, but she was there. So made sure it was all right. She was fine with it. This is Mike Kohler, another '65 graduate from Stillwater. Stewart's our second Matamidi guy. Died at the end of the Tet Offensive, year of '68. Ryan Brown. I like to tell people, you never know how close it is, how close the effects of Vietnam are. You don't think it affected you? Hey, yeah, it could have. Maybe some buddy of yours would have gone if somebody else didn't go. You don't know. But a lot of you know Brent Peterson, the director here of the Historical Society. Ryan Brown is his dad's cousin. Okay, Brent couldn't be here tonight. He'd have liked to have been, but Ryan was his dad's cousin. Pretty neat. I didn't know that till a couple months ago. Gary Wayne Peterson, Homer record, St. Paul Park, Minnesota. How can you do that when you're born in Mora and buried in Mora? His parents moved down there. His dad got a job with Sperry Univac a few years before he graduated. He chose to stay there and do football and hang around with his buddies. So when he graduated from Mora, He came down here, lived here a few months, even summer helped at Sperry, where his dad was working, went in the service and got killed. So he ended up with the Homer record. He said where he was living at the time, St. Paul Park. Another one just like it. Homer record, St. Paul Park. Marlon Anderson, my wife and I drove out to Boyceville High School, out by Menominee, and got his picture. And the school was so good, they weren't in session, but there was like 4 teachers and the principal there when we got there. Which yearbook do you want? They had freshman through senior. So I should have showed, he has just a great senior picture around here somewhere, or you can look it up yourselves too, now that y'all know. Harold Smith, I told the story when I worked at Stillwater here. His brother came up and I asked him, he said who he was. He cried the whole time coming up to me. He cried the whole time we talked, and he cried when he turned around and walked away. It was like it happened yesterday. Douglas Merrill, he's another one. His Homer record was North St. Paul. But the last square mile in North St. Paul, going from north to south, each square mile, those kids all went to Lake Elmo Elementary, Lake Elmo Middle Schools, Stillwater High School. And somehow they missed him on that memorial down there by the courthouse. And when they found out, they added him to the memorial. So he's at the bottom of it. They gave him a paver. 2 of his sisters came, Judine and Diane. They gave him American flags in the boxes. They gave him certificates. They had him hang a wreath. It was wonderful. And our family, I think almost everybody that's sitting here, we saw all that. That was pretty neat, what they did for Doug. And he had a nephew that played soccer with one of my nephews. Pretty cool. This is Gary Graber, and Gary's from the class of 47 at Stillwater. We'll go Graber. Billy Christensen was from St. Paul Park, and he's buried over in South St. Paul. There's a General Lutheran cemetery. Anybody can get buried at Fort Snelling for nothing, but sometimes the family ties, the religious ties will keep you in your community. And that's what happened with him. His parents are buried alongside him after he died. There's Arnie Aids. Here's our other guy without a Homer record in Washington County, like Douglas Merrill had North St. Paul. He has St. Paul. So many guys. I went to South St. Paul. We got 11 guys on the wall. One of them said where he was born. That was Fort Worth, Texas. 3 of them said South St. Paul. The rest of them all said St. Paul. So they'll do that. Like an Edina kid might say Hennepin County, or Minneapolis. They'll go with a bigger town. So it can be very confusing. If anybody knows sports in St. Paul Park and Cottage Grove, he was his mother was a Whitbread, and 3 generations of Whitbreads were lived in Cottage Grove and St. Paul Park. And Whitbread Senior, he's on the Fireman's Memorial up by the Capitol too, with his nephew just a few memorials away, Arnie Hayes. And there's Hicks, the second guy from the class of 47, and Mackey. So if you notice, they all died 3 years apart, 67, 68, Mackey in 69, but they're all in class of 67. Mark Steely, the guy we saw with Barton Johnson at the beginning, was able to track his sisters out in Conifer, Colorado. Their stepdad was a federal census taker. He jumped around a lot. He only lived in Cottage Grove on Hale. He only lived there about a year before he went into the Air Force. The sisters lived there for that full year, and then 4 or 5 years later, then they moved to Conifer. And at Cope Funeral Home, I found out that his stepdad was Dennis Kovar. So I went home in 2014. This was like the 3rd picture I ever got. And I Googled Kovar Steely. Here, Dennis Kovar, his stepdad died the year before out in Colorado, and that's how I got his sister's name. So 3 of his sisters are out there, and then there's another one in Wisconsin somewhere. So Mark was the oldest with 4 sisters. This is Mike Sampson, the other guy from the real Forest Lake. And here's the youngest guy in a while. He's born the same year as me in 52, Ray Hewitt. And he wasn't in school a lot, missed a lot of school and stuff. So he should have graduated in 70, but he was in the class of 71. And while his class was in the second month of their senior year, he died in Vietnam. They were still young seniors. Crazy. So now we're going to get to something that I feel is very important this year, and that's to talk about 1975. Because I've been watching this on the wall for the last 3-4 years. Been thinking to myself, I'll go out to a site and think, okay, all we got left is this panel, one east, and these guys here. You go back to next year, as far as everybody being gone 50 years, the 50-year anniversaries. I know well that it would come up in this year, 2025. So we're going to talk a little bit about those last days of the Vietnam War. And just when you think it's the last guys to die in Vietnam during that conflict, it's now. Here's how it ended. So the war. Not going back. We'll come back to this for a little bit. Image, but anyway, you see David Weeks here. If you count 66 names before him, those were the 66 guys that died in 73. Can you imagine going from 17,000 to 66? Okay. And what happened in 73? January 27 was the Treaty of Paris. The war ended. If you look up here, you'll see Richard Weir, Charles Parker, Keith Christopherson. Keith was from my hometown of South St. Paul. He graduated in 64. Weir was from Mankato. So you had two Minnesotans with this Charles Parker on a plane that got launched off the deck of the USS Ranger. One problem, as soon as they launched their assist catapult, the right buckle broke. So their plane went off to the side, down on the bottom of Gulf of Tonkin. I thought the Gulf of Tonkin was maybe like as deep as Mille Lacs. No, it's in water almost as deep as the Titanic. So it'll never get rescued. But anyway, I was in band with Christopherson's sister. And I found her in Fort Collins, Colorado. She sent a ton of pictures and one of the best writings you'll ever see also. But she explains that she does not feel conflicted like other MIA families because their deaths were witnessed by 150 sailors on the deck that day. So like I said, we have 33 MIAs. We got Crockett and Crack, and then we got Weir and Christopherson. That's 4 of the 33. Pretty close to us that time. So for those 66 names, that's all 1973. When did their plane go in? January 21. If they live one more week, they're probably still walking around. Christopherson and Weir. Now, let's go below David Weeks. We're going to count the 62 names below him. You'll see the last lady that died in Vietnam, Mary Clinker, right here. But look at all these guys, 62. These are the guys from 75 during the fall of Saigon. I got some great books about the fall of Saigon. They're over here, Last Man Out. But Finding Joe Hargrove is in here somewhere too. Here it is, Bringing Joe Hargrove Home. So, has anybody figured out the distinction of David Weeks? Anybody know? He's the only guy that died in 1974. You got the 66 above him from 73 and 62 there. So let's go up a little bit. We're going to go to Weeks, and then we're going to go down to Darwin Judge and Charles McMahon. Here you can see what's going on during the fall of Saigon. Anybody remember pictures like that? Okay, planes, anything guys could move easy. What were they doing?
They didn't have room for them, so they had to push them off the ships.
What was going on the ships?
All the civilians.
People. What's more precious? 2 junky helicopters or some people? Okay, they ran out of room. And these aircraft carriers, I've been on 2 of them, they got huge hangar decks down below. That's full of people. They're starting to put people up here. They got to make room, so they're shoving all these in. Those are iconic pictures of that era. So this is April 29th. This is the last day. These are the last 4 guys that are going to die in Vietnam. So you got Charles McMahon, Charles McMahon from Woburn, Massachusetts, Darwin Judge from Marshalltown, Iowa, down on the Lincoln Highway. They're standing outside, Darwin's 19. They're standing outside a building at the airport. The building takes a big hit and they die instantly. Okay, they had insult to injury. The North Vietnamese did not return their two bodies for 10 months to their country or their families. Terrible. So later that day, William Neistel and Michael Shea, they're in helicopters. And we had helicopters going around each of these aircraft carriers. It was more than one carrier going around them because people were getting antsy. They saw some of these choppers were waiting so long and stuff. They were jumping in the water knowing they'd get rescued. So that's what they were doing, was rescue. So they had 3 or 4 guys in their chopper with them to operate the winches and stuff. And one of these 2 guys phoned in. These are Marine helicopter pilots. So we're running low on fuel. The carrier said, "We don't have any room for you." 2 minutes later, they made that same call, and in that instant went down. Okay, so they went to the bottom of Gulf of Tonkin, and the other 3, 4 guys, whatever, they got up. They survived. So those guys are the last guys to die in Vietnam. But what's going on here? They're right here. And the wall is right about all these guys. We're still gonna lose 40 some guys. And here's what happened with the Mayaguez incident. It didn't occur. It did not occur in Vietnam. The Mayaguez had merchant Marines. Those aren't Marines like those Marines. These are guys on a boat taking supplies to Thailand, our good ally. And they had to go past Cambodia. So Pol Pot and his Khmer Rouge guys came out and took over that boat. It was 18 civilian merchant mariners on it. Took over that boat. So we decided to go do a mission here. And we had a big air base in Thailand. So they took off with a helicopter. This is it. These guys are all going to be dead in about 5-10 minutes. It took off and crashed. Got to an altitude. This is one of them. His name is Daryl Hamlin. My wife's brother, Tim, got this letter from Daryl a few weeks before he dies. They were best friends at Offutt Air Force Base. Tim got sent to Ipswich, England. He got sent to Vietnam. So they sent up 22 Air Force, about 18 Air Force SPs to rescue these 18 guys. And the other 4, the crew was Air Force also. And there's about 15 guys you can count here. They're almost all there. So Tim, my brother-in-law, thought maybe even Daryl, Daryl's the one that took the picture. Anyway, Daryl's writing. Anybody can read it when we're done here. It's right here. I had to transcribe because it had such poor resolution, but it's got some bad language in it. I told Heidi Zimmerman in DC, if you can't print it because of that, let's just forget I asked. She said, "We'll print it. This is how they talk." But she did ask me to transcribe it. So none of it's bad natured or anything, but and he reconciles himself with, he knows what could happen to him. So they took off and they crashed. They crashed on takeoff. So they thought about it. That was May 13th. So May 15th, they don't send one chopper, they send a dozen. By the end of the day, only 3 are going to make it back. So let's go back to let's go back to Koh Tang Island. Missed it again. So it's a tiny island. They thought it was lightly defended. Better intelligence would have told them that these guys were already taken into Cambodia. The Cambodians didn't want them. They didn't want to start another war with us. So they were on their way to Thailand when those guys arrived in the morning. I told you by the end of the day, only 3 choppers could fly out. So here's our last guys to die in Vietnam. And if you read Bringing Joe Hargrove Home, which didn't happen, okay, he had a cousin. Joe Hargrove had a cousin, and she had a son, and he organized a recovery attempt in the early 2000s. And they had Americans, they had Cambodians help. When they got to Koh Tang Island, he was told, they did this dig for a while. And here are the last guys. If you notice, they're all Marines. Okay, Gary Hall, Danny Marshall, 18 years old, 18 years old, MIA, MIA. You're seeing the last MIAs 50 years ago with Joe Hargrove. Okay, so what happened was these helicopters got shot up. I told you, Richard, his last name, Richard Van de Geer, is the last guy because he's alphabetical on that day. Okay, and Van de Geer, Rumbaugh, how Garcia got in there, Boyd, Bergenberg. Anyway, he's the last guy alphabetically. So what happened was, with only 3 choppers, things were very hectic. It was so heavily, they were so heavily getting shot. And these guys occupied a 3-person machine gun nest off on the right flank. They thought everybody was on, so they left them behind. The Marines left 3 Marines behind. You never hear of that. So they realized that when they all got back, so they waited till the next day, and for the next few days, sent a few bullets around, see if anybody come out and swim and leave. That wasn't happening. But the Cambodians noticed. What happened is that guy that did the dig, Kerry Turner, the author of the book there, when they were doing that digging, he was introduced to a Cambodian who came up to him, and he admitted to shooting Joe Hargrove. He executed him, this Cambodian did. He told him that. He said what happened was we were missing food. We knew it. So we knew some of these guys were alive. So then Marshall and Hall were found like about the same time, but it's 2 different. They were executed together by a group of them. And that Cambodian that confessed to Kerry Turner. It's 2 different incidents. But you're looking at the pictures of the last 3 guys on the wall that died. Who's this last guy here? Not a great picture. Richard Rivenberg. He's on that last line with Van de Geer, but his name is all the way on the left. Rivenberg was one of those MIAs. Today, there's still 5 18-year-olds from that day, from May 15, the last day, and 6 of them are MIA. He was one of them. In 2012, they recovered his remains, returned it to his family. When he wrote his last letter home in 75, probably in early May, his last line was, "Don't get tired of waiting for me." So I got a little bit more here. Here's the in memory. Who are these guys? They don't look like vets, do they? No, but they weren't. Anybody raise their hand if you know anybody who served and survived Vietnam, came home, had their lives shortened or altered by their service in Vietnam, and are deceased today. Raise your hands. Okay. I got some pamphlets here for you for in memory. You can go on the website and do it. They need a copy of the DD 214. They need a copy of the death certificate, not to prove what he died from, because if it's Agent Orange, it won't say that. You know, but they died of all these weird cancers, alcohol, PTSD, drugs, you name it. And if they served and survived and are gone, all you have to do is send that in. So the death certificate is just to prove that you're not trying to enroll somebody that's alive. And then a couple nice pictures. So you'll see the service pictures and the older guy pictures. And that's what they want from you. They'll make the choice whose picture goes out front. And there's a plaque at the wall. There's 2 guys I know. There's Pat Beard. He was a state legislator from Cottage Grove for a number of years for us. And there's Mike Greshwak. He was from South St. Paul. I was in track with his brother. There was like 4 or 5 of these brothers. And he had 1 sister. You could have used the same picture for any one of them guys. They all look so much alike. What's going on there? Anybody know what that is?
Sworn in.
Swearing them in. Where at?
Stadium.
These guys are called Twins Platoon. Okay, that was in 67. So they swore these 150 guys in, 4 or 5 of them were women. And by the 4th inning, they didn't even let them watch a whole game. By the 4th inning, they were headed to San Diego Marine Boot Camp. And Chris Sorrell wrote the book. He's got 2 versions of Twins Platoon. Here's his most recent one. awesome book. Okay, and you're almost guaranteed to find somebody you might be familiar with or have heard of even. Don Walensky from Inver Grove is on there. Larry Jones, Chris sent out a blanket, Chris Sarle sent out an email to everybody. And yeah, Larry Jones' wife died. I looked, she was Margie Bach, and she used to babysit me. She was 4 years older. Your Quinces know where the Bachmans live. And then Patty babysat us too. She was only 3 years older than me. I was the oldest. I don't think my mother trusted me very much. We have a picture of Skip Wallace Schmidt. Anybody heard of Diane Finneman from Forest Lake? Sure, that's her brother. Okay, he took his own life after 2 years of being home. He saved guys' lives. There's a neat article about him here. In a paper out east. Photojournalist, a combat photojournalist was hit. That guy knew he was gonna die. And he asked Skip, he says, stay with me. I don't want to die alone. And Skip says, I gotta help other guys, but I'll come back to you. I'll come back. He died in Skip's arms. You talk about what triggers PTSD. This is Kerry Gossman. He's from Wayland. That's from the town down the river from Lanesboro. And he was 17 when he got in. Your folks have to sign for you. You sign in at 17. And you get killed. That's added guilt for your parents. Okay, because you literally signed his life away. His last letter home says, Mom, I don't know what it is, but I don't think I'm coming back from Vietnam alive. I don't know what it is, but something just keeps telling me. Oh, well, if I do, this is an 18-year-old, I've died for something I believe in. That's democracy, freedom for the world, United States. Carry. About 2 weeks later, he crawls into a sleeping bag with a poison snake and never wakes up. Okay, so his sister, Connie, is 5 years old at the time he got killed. She helped me get that picture. And whoop, I gotta go back. There's his sister there. This is at Egan, 2022. And I told her it was coming. She lives east of Rochester with her husband, Mike. And she says, you can come up and visit. She says, well, can I volunteer for you? Yeah. You could be at the wall and tell people where their loved ones are. No, I want to work. What kind of work? Well, that kind of stuff. You can work setup or take setup. I want to do setup. That's the hardest day for anybody there. So she shows up. And that's when I told her, I says, you know, you can carry your brother's panel. She loved that. So that's a 3-person carry. She carried it with Nancy. My daughter-in-law, Tanya, who's sitting right there. She took this picture of Connie, pointing towards her. She says, take a picture of me. And Tanya, are you a trick photographer?
No.
She's not. But can anybody in this room tell me what that shaft of light is? What's it from? Nobody there knew that day. Nobody knows to this day. I did a nice writing about it on his webpage and stuff. And anyway, as a coincidence, it looks like it comes out of her hand. He's online too. If you magnify it on your webpage, go on your computer and do it. It passes through the first syllable of his last name. Pretty neat. This was the only picture for Richard Mishuk. Fort Snelling has two MM areas, memorial markers. Those are MIAs from all different wars. And nobody knows, nobody walking around there knows, only the family knows. Is there anything down there? There might be a baseball glove in a box, who knows? Anyway, I saw this name, Richard Mishuk. This is years ago. Why do I know that name? I got home, looked him up. He's got that horrible Marine boot camp picture taken the day, their first day there. So they get their name there. Usually they have numbers there. You know what they look like. They look like con men. So I was able to find his brothers, Cletus and Dennis. And Dennis had the book, one of them old picture books with the adhesive on it that held it down. You can't get some of them out. When you submit these pictures, and there's more, they will reproduce them in the order you send them. So you're going to see him grow up. He was a fisherman. He was Catholic, First Communion. That's Cletus. When he was serving, when Richard was serving, Dennis was older, but in the service too. And that book, that picture book, the parents made that. It was simply titled U.S. Marine Greeting. And there's his two grandmas, Grandma Michigan, of course. His other grandma was Grandma Navy. Can you believe that? He's a Marine. Anybody know their uniforms? What uniform is that guy in the middle?
Yes.
Waffen SS. We had a Nazi on the wall.
Hmm.
Okay, so he's right there too. His name was Larry Thorne, born in Finland. That's his Finnish service picture. He was born in 1919. As our equivalents to a PFC, a private. He'd say, hey, can I take a few guys out? I'll see what I can do. He'd come back. Yeah, we killed 40 of them guys, Russians. He hated communism because he knew they were coming to Finland someday. He hated communism before those wars ever started. And when Hitler invaded Poland in September 39, Russians invaded Finland at the same time. So he got notoriety. Pretty soon he'd go out with a dozen guys and kill a couple hundred of them. He couldn't get enough of it. He was never married. It's probably a good thing. And he had a huge bounty. The Russians had a huge bounty on this guy. And that was called the Winter War, because after winter, then it was over. Well, then he went to the Germans. They knew who he was. He says, I'll fight for you guys. He said, and I will not, I refuse to fight on the Western Front. He really wanted to kill more Russians. So they let him in there. He got more famous. After that war was over, he skipped Korea. He couldn't go back to Finland right away because he joined the Germans. So he goes to works for a Swedish merchant marine type of thing. He had a drop off in northern South America somewhere. And then they had one on coastal America. He got too close to Alabama. He jumped out, swam to shore, went to New York, found some friends, got in our first Green Berets. And there he is there. He was, there's another better picture of him there. He went out with 3 South Vietnamese one night on a mission in a chopper and never came back. They had no idea where he was. His remains were, the site was found in the late 90s, in the early 2000s. His remains were returned. And him and those South Vietnamese are buried right where they deserve to be, Section 30 of Arlington National Cemetery.
Hmm.
You've seen his grave. What a story. The fact fiction thing with John Wayne, Green Beret, he was portraying this guy.
Hmm.
But nobody could portray this guy. Absolutely no one. Not possible. So Jackie and Phil Smith are with us here. And we were all part of this when they dedicated their brother, Richard Fina, at Hudson. Their old high school is called Willow River Elementary. Okay, he was the only guy from Vietnam there. And they had a plaque made. It was during COVID. And I think, did I include that picture? No. Anyway, they presented it to the principal. The kids all read different writings about him and stuff. It's wonderful. So there's Richard in country. He was a Navy medic. I've had people say to me, how do Navy medics get killed sitting in ships? They don't. They don't sit on ships. They are the medics for the Marines. The Army has their own, Air Force has their own. These guys are the medics for the Marines. That's how Richard died. So he's down on panel 68. He must be way down this way. Everybody right. So he's on 68, top name, right-hand side. And Jackie and I got into a discussion a few years back, and she says, you know, we got these Gold Star family patches. We don't know how to disperse them. I said, well, I see plenty of people every year on the road. So I take them out. Here they are. They always got a picture of Richard on the back, stuff, and pretty neat. And it's just an honor to do that. We make a good team, don't we, Jackie? Yeah. So anyway, we'll move on. There's a couple of our great, she was a volunteer, Rosie Dyke. That was in Farmington, Maine. She's holding up her patch. She was a volunteer. She was there all but one day, took people, showed them where their loved ones were on the wall. And what's her distinction? More than that, they have 11 MIAs from Maine. Her brother, John Brooks, is one of those 11. But she worked her tail off that whole week. I couldn't believe it. What a great lady. And I never got her name, but she is Jerry Combest's sister. You see, she's in a wheelchair there. She really couldn't be a volunteer. But anyway, Jerry Best, her brother, and Lanny Hale were best friends. They're both born in 43. They had a lot of light parallels. Born in 43, they played basketball together. They graduated in 61. In 68, Lanny was over in Vietnam. He was killed. Jerry was there too. Jerry came home to be his pallbearer. 6 months later, Jerry was killed in action. So those are the kind of people I meet when I go out with the law. Pretty good. So here is Thomas Podhoff. Wouldn't it make you wonder, who is this kid? You know, he's 20 or whatever. He was from Centennial. And this was written a few years back, and it's included in the VVMF blogs of 2022 when the wall turned 40 years old. Said, I've been getting photos for a few months at this time. Thomas Podhoff came from the North Metro. Thomas's brother Michael wrote a remembrance with his email. So I wrote to him explaining the project and asking for a photo. I don't get one picture, I get two. The second one is definitely not a great quality photo. It's got the big crack in it. But it's one of the most meaningful for me. Upon seeing it, I wondered, who is this little girl? Is it a niece, a sister, or possibly a daughter? I just had to know. So I emailed Michael a second time and asked. It was none of them. The little girl is the daughter of Thomas's fiance. I was kind of new to picture gathering, but this photo made me feel bad. Not just for Thomas, not just for his family, but for the family he could have had. I hope someday that little girl got a good dad. She could have already had one had Thomas survived. You know that a big part of Vietnam is so much more than the lives lost. It's the families that never happened. And all the old guys that could be sitting around today, retired, with a wife and kids and grandkids. It could have been that way. There's a legacy and there's a lost legacy. So anyway, Michael told me that since that blog came out in 22, they got in contact with each other. That little girl's name was Joyce. And of course, she's in her 50s. That's Hedwig Orlowski. She's one of our 8 lady nurses. So what's the story with her and what's that doily around her neck? Okay. I got this picture a few years back. She was, all the ladies in that class, her sophomore year in 61. It was an American military high school, Hap Arnold High School in Wiesbaden. Hap Arnold was a general. That's what they named the school after. So you had all these American kids. Their parents were servicemen. They went to these schools they had. They didn't send them to schools. Wouldn't learn anything I would have. So anyway, she hadn't been an American for too long. Her mom and dad were from Poland. They fought in World War II, mom and dad. I don't think she fought, but she served. And her parents' names were Bronislaw and Zuzanne. Not Suzanne, Zuzanne, 2 Z's in it. So one or both of them joined the American military after World War II, and that's where she ended up. So what were all these kids doing? A lot of them, they were following in their parents' footsteps and joining the military. And once in a while, like the 1 or 2 of their parents, they were killed in that military. So this is the end of it here. This is Marion Derrickson. This is Joe Sillen. He was from New York. He was from Oklahoma. And just the expressions of these guys, you know, it brings it out this wall of faces. You know, look at that guy, so free-spirited. And who can imagine what this guy's trying to think? So anyway, that's about it, everybody. I hope we all remember these guys. You can come up here and look at stuff. It's a noisy spot here. This is when the wall was set up at the Capitol. Here's a schedule for going out on the road this year. Melvin corrects census, how to use that wall. Look up anybody on the wall. Map. Here's some of the boards. I made these, most of it was many years ago, and different people that got me pictures here, like Richard Hammer's picture came from these Daryl and Diane Sanis. Kenny Honick's sister was worried that, can you crop out those beer cans? What are they gonna say? They love that. They want to see that these guys had fun once in a while. So they're both on there. Both can't, we did one crop to please her, then we left the Schwartz cans out. Nothing wrong with that. There's 8 lady nurses. There's some pamphlets I'll have available for anybody. Different books. Here's a Hard Cottage Grove High School yearbook. 3 guys. We got 3 guys from that class in there. There's Derrickson and Sil in there. Some other great guys. So I hope we all learned a little bit. I did. Listening from some of you folks, it's great. It's great to be here tonight. Thank you.